To discuss this further, political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu is a professor of political science and deputy dean of research at the University of the Western Cape. He joins us now. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Perhaps let's just start with the order of the day, the sub judice rule and the case that's before the High Court by the ATM, and how that would have influenced whether or not there was a vote of no confidence against South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, thank you very much for having me in this episode. First of all, let me start off by saying that having a vote of no confidence against the president of the country is in line with the constitution of the country, section 89 of the constitution. You would recall that during the reign of former President Jacob Zuma, there were a series of votes of no confidence against the then president, but unfortunately, because of the numbers, the opposition parties could not win the day. And then it survived until the ANC decided to do what opposition parties had failed, and then removed the former president by forcing him, in fact, to resign. So what we've seen happening then recently with the ATM, that is the African Transformation Movement, was for them to apply this section of the Constitution to say, if you are no longer happy with the president of the country, you then have to raise a motion in Parliament, which will be debated, and then it will be put into a vote, and then, a decision is taken. But in this case, as you just indicated in your introductory remarks, what happened is that the ATM wanted this vote to be held through a secret ballot. But unfortunately, then the Speaker did not agree with that. Then ATM went to the Cape Town High Court, and the Cape Town High Court said, okay, as much as we would be happy to listen to this matter, but we cannot submit it on an urgent basis. So we are not going to listen to it now. Then we can submit it through an ordinary court proceeding, which then brought us to where we are today. That is the reason why then the motion could not be discussed today, because what needed to happen for the motion to be discussed, someone from members of parliament had to raise the motion during the sitting, then the debate would start. So with ATM saying, we are not going to raise this motion because we're still waiting for the court to listen to our request, then it meant that the motion could not be tabled. So that is where we find ourselves right now. And that is the reason why the motion of no confidence against President Cyril Ramaphosa could not proceed.
Perhaps for those who have not been privy to the arguments that have been before the High Court, that the ATM is adamant that this should be done by secret ballot, the importance thereof.
No, it's very important to vote secretly, because you know that there are politicians who abide by the rules of their political parties, but then there will be certain things that they are not happy with, which they cannot voice out in public if, for example, the vote is held openly. But then if you vote through a secret ballot, chances are people are going to vote following their conscience. That's the term that politicians like the most. So which means that you would not be in a position to know immediately as to how I voted, because I would have voted secretly. So ATM then is and the EFF in fact is on the side of ATM. They are saying that if you were to vote or to conduct this vote secretly, chances are there are a number of ANC MPs who would vote with ATM or vote for the motion to pass. So in that case, then that is why the ANC on its side is resistant in a way to say, let us continue with the vote, but let the vote be public, because they know for sure that any member of the ANC who votes for the motion, basically saying the president must vacate office, will be then dealt with within the disciplinary processes of the ANC. So that is why then the ANC is reluctant. And on the other side, the opposition parties are eager to have this vote held secretly.
And this issue of voting with your conscience is very important. And it's come up several times when it comes to the issue of accountability and being true to the people of South Africa. The DA saying that it's almost become a well-known joke, a moniker for the ANC, saying something as akin to absolutely no accountability when in terms of what it represents. But the ANC, countering this by saying, insisting on having a vote of no confidence in the cabinet is almost like trying to divide the president and his own cabinet. I'd like to hear your views on these points.
Okay, so let me start off by saying two things. One, I don't necessarily take the DA's argument seriously, because you recall that when they were raising a vote of no confidence against former President Zuma, the DA was vocal in saying that voting should be done secretly. But then a few weeks down the line, when the DA was voting against Patricia de Lille, they were the ones who were basically singing a different tune, saying that, in fact, the opposite should happen. So I don't take them seriously for that. But then let's put the DA aside. Let's deal with the matters at play. The motion raised by the DA saying that they have no confidence in the entire cabinet of President Cyril Ramaphosa is unprecedented. We have never heard of this, at least in the new political dispensation post-1994. But then, having said that, what the DA was saying is not in contravention of the Constitution. It's within their right to raise such a motion, which is why, in fact, the motion was held today. And then, of course, it failed, as you correctly pointed out, that 231 against 131 with one abstention. So basically, then the DA operated within the rules, but then they knew for sure they were not going to win, but they had to try their luck anyway. Now, had this motion passed, in other words, had a cabinet been voted out, what this would have meant was that the president was going to remain the president of the country, but without a cabinet. The most interesting thing at SABC is that Section 84 of the Constitution empowers the president to appoint a cabinet from amongst members of parliament. So in all likelihood, the motion could pass, and then the entire cabinet could be voted out. Come tomorrow, the president would invoke Section 84 of the Constitution and reappoint the same ministers, and the DA or anyone from the opposition parties for that matter would have no leg to stand on, because the president would have acted in accordance with the law. So in other words, the Constitution as it stands is in fact making it difficult to oust the cabinet and then hope that the president is going to appoint another cabinet. For as long as we are using the system that we are using, whereby the president has the prerogative to appoint and fire ministers using Section 84 of the Constitution.
Is it a cohesive unit? Is it a united cabinet? Or should I say executive, when you look at some of the issues that have been brought up on why there should be a vote of no confidence? And I want to look at the balance of power. It's a difference of 100 votes, as you were recounting for us, who voted for and against the motion. And I'd like to look at those that didn't support the notions. Obviously, none of the ANC MPs broke rank, but you had opposition parties like the AFP, Good, NFP, AIC, and Al-Jamaa that didn't support the motions. Those who did, the DA, EFF, FF+, ACDP, UDM, ATM, and Kobzuli Madisha is being the one who abstained, but the PAC was absent. So I'd like to talk about the balance of power going forward. It almost seems like it is inching nearer to a point where the ANC is going to lose such critical votes because of a level of support from the other side.
No, so truth be told, the ANC is at its weakest point. It's no longer as strong as it used to be. You and I know that there was a time when the ANC controlled 2/3 of parliament, and then they could in fact change the constitution without relying on any of the smaller parties. But those days are gone. And there are many reasons for that. One is that we have too many political parties right now. And in fact, going forward, I was talking to someone during the day saying that going forward, we are most likely to see coalition governments both at national level and also at provincial level. We've already seen this happening at the local sphere of government. The reason for that is that one of the reasons, at least, is that we have too many political parties, over 500 political parties that are now registered with the IEC. And as we recall, last year with 325 parties contesting the local government election. So that tells you that obviously the number of parties is now bigger than it was in 1994, 1999, 2004, 2009, and 19, and so on and so forth. But the reality of the matter also is that divisions in the ANC are not helping the ANC at all. You find that there are disgruntled members of the ANC who are members of the ANC and still abide by the rules and principles and the constitution of the ANC, but at heart, they are not happy with the status quo, which is why then if you go for a secret ballot, some of those people will be voting against their own political party. But now, if you look at the numbers as they stand right now, for instance, for you to remove these ministers, you would need, say, because there are 170, they form 170, all opposition parties combined is 170. So it means that for them to get at least 201 of the 400 seats, they would need at least 31 members of the ANC to vote with them. And I don't see that happening, not because ANC MPs are happy with their party, but because some are concerned about their own political futures, because some don't have any fallback position. The ANC is all they have. Politics is all they have. So if they lose their seats in parliament, they have nowhere else to go. So they would rather die in the ANC, even if they are not happy with what is happening. So that is the reality we're faced with. But in terms of numbers, I don't see any political party from the opposition benches removing the ANC as of now. But then come 2024, if the trend that we saw happening in 2021 repeats itself in 2024, chances are the ANC will have a significantly reduced majority or will have a coalition government. And from where I'm standing, and that's a point I've made several times at SABC, that I'm not the kind of a person who embraces a coalition government because it doesn't help us, and it's also anti-democratic in my view, because the voters vote for Party A, but then Party A decides to forge relations with Party C. And when they do that, they don't go to the electorate and seek a fresh mandate. They just take a decision and then say, under representative democracy, you have entrusted us with decision-making powers, and we're deciding on your behalf. So I see something happening in 2024 with a reduced majority of the ANC or a coalition government. And then in that case, we'll be speaking a different language.
Thank you so much for your time and insights. Much appreciated. Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, he is political analyst and he's also Professor of Political Science and Deputy Dean of Research at the University of the Western Cape.